you're either in control or you're out of control.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to you which one you want to be.
So you said something interesting on Tom Bilyeu's podcast where it was like 98% of people are trapped in their own perception. 2% are living in reality.
Correct.
So those 2% that are living in reality, do they not have the ability to like just completely manipulate other people's worldviews?
Mm-hmm. They do.
And control their outcomes for their own benefit?
That's exactly what they have, yeah.
So then how do you identify, if you're in reality, how would you identify someone else who's in reality, knowing that people that are both in reality know how to make themselves be perceived as they are not in reality?
It's
politics, I guess I'm asking, where people will, maybe this is two separate concepts, so I'll let you think on that one. But second one could be politics. People go up on stage, they say words that make them look good and sound good to the public, and you can't refute those words, but what they're actually conveying with an underlying message is for their own self-interest. Like they could say, this is for climate change, but they actually have a business that could financially benefit from the means of production for climate change.
I mean, really what you just brought up in those two questions was like 4 or 5 different concepts.
Okay.
But you're...
This is actually what I want to talk about. So
I'm glad, man, because what you're doing is you're putting into words and into this real experience what most of us feel.
Yeah.
The hard thing about being a human being is that we feel much, much more than we think. I mean, think about it. You have 5 senses, but you only have one rational brain. So you can see why you would feel so much more information than what you rationally think.
Yeah.
But the problem is, while we feel all this information, while we feel so much, we then start to think that because we feel, we are rationally correct. And the opposite is true, right? There's only one rational brain working to try to make sense out of all 5 of your senses. What you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you... And that's just real time. Like in this exact moment, there's a temperature on our skin that we feel. There's a smell in the air that we smell. There's a certain level of lighting, right? Like I see you and your background. You see something totally different when you look at me and see my background. And this is just the real moment. What's also processing through our brain is what just happened 5 seconds ago, 2 minutes ago, 2 hours ago, 2 days ago. The brain is processing all of that also. So there's this incredible amount of information that and only one brain to rationally process it. That's why people don't have patience to let their brain process. They make these radical assumptions based off of their feelings. So when you start talking about people who are in control, the 2% of people who are in control of their brain, or people who live in what we term to be reality, right? Really what that means is they live in a world of perspective, not a world of perception. Perception means this is what my 5 senses tell me. It's how I perceive the world, and therefore it's true. How you perceive the world is not true. It's true to you only based on what you've perceived. You could sit in this room and perceive that you're safe, but there could be a car that's getting ready to drive by and shoot through the windows, right? You are wrong. So you could perceive that you're safe and not actually be safe. Yeah. You can feel safe and not actually be safe. All that the 2% of people do who live in a world of perspective is they're able to actually create assessment-based objective conclusions off of multiple data sources in addition to their 5 senses. So now it's like, oh, well, I know what the crime rate looks like in this neighborhood on this day, this time of year on average. I know that there's more crime or less crime when it's this temperature or that temperature, right? So now we're building an assessment of how likely it is that someone's going to drive by and shoot through these windows. That's an extreme example. The same thing's true. You sit at a negotiation table, right? Car salesman, again, if you sit down to negotiate with a car salesman on the 5th day of the month, guess how much leverage you have? Almost none, because they have a whole month to meet their quota. But if you sit down with a car salesman on the 29th day of the month, guess how much leverage you have? A shit ton more, right? Living in an objective world where you are living in your perspective means that you're thinking about your schedule and the salesman's schedule and the manager, the general manager of the cars dealerships world. And you're living in the CEO's world because guess what? You sit in a Ford dealership to make a deal on the 5th day of the first month of a quarter. You got the least amount of leverage of all. You sit in the same seat the last day of a quarter, you have the most leverage of all, right? Because everybody's pushing the last week of the last quarter, the last week of the last month of the last quarter of the year. You have an incredible amount of leverage.